with the title of the paper we're going to be discussing. So I looked at that title and I thought, wow, there's some quite long words in there. If you could please describe, maybe in layman's terms, what you mean by the title of your article before we get started.
Oh, I would have to go back to check what it is.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you've probably written so many. It was the one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I see. I feel like I'm going to butcher this word. Phenomenological strands relating to gaming and esports.
Yeah. So phenomenological basically refers to people's experiences, and that's a big difference compared to what has been done in the research field for so long time. So a lot of research on gaming and esports and gaming disorder in particular has been a lot of survey research. So people are expressing what they think, but it's way more difficult to get access to how people experience things personally. And the phenomenology that we are doing here is explicitly this. So we're interested in people's personal experiences and how they interpret them.
Okay, so that's interesting. So you say most research done is through survey. So how is this then conducted? Is that a different technique of like gathering the data?
So we did interviews with people.
Right.
3 groups of people. One group was people who have been seeking treatment for their gaming. And another group is esports players, not professional, but sort of passionate esports players who play at least 4 hours per day and have been playing for a while. And the last group was experts, so psychologists, treatment providers, so to say, healthcare experts. And then we compared all these things.
Oh, that's interesting. So you get the other side of the coin as well, the people that are there to help. That's good, because I don't imagine there's been many studies done on that already, because I mean it's already quite a niche topic, but it's hard to actually find research that's been done on it. So yeah, thanks for describing the difference. So you say obviously in your research you said the difference between internet gaming disorder and just intensive play. Could you describe the difference actually between internet gaming disorder and someone who just plays video games quite intensely?
Right. So there are many answers to this. Some people say, like, the concept of gaming disorder or internet gaming disorder, there's 2 different diagnostic manuals, the DSM-5 TR, which is now used in the US and some other countries. And then there's the global WHO's ICD-11. So in the ICD, it's just gaming disorder, and in the American DSM-5, it's internet gaming disorder and not officially in use yet. So 2 small technical things. Some people don't believe that's correct, so it's still debated. But when it comes to the diagnostic classification, there are some strict criteria that define all of these things, all of these terms technically. But when it comes to what we see in the interviews, what people actually experience and feel, we see things like people regretting their gaming after several years and would like to quit, but they feel they cannot quit, and things like these that sort of conflict with what they would like to do, but they just for some reason cannot.
Okay, and so that would be internet gaming disorder then? People that would like to do something about it but can't?
Yeah, exactly. And when it comes to these people who are passionate and feel like they're gaming without any problems, these people generally feel that gaming is part of their identity, gaming is part of who they are, and gaming is not causing any problems for them, but rather in many cases supporting their life in various ways.
Right. Okay. So that's the difference between. So then how so obviously you mentioned the difference between intensive. So intensive is people that play a lot, but it doesn't impact real life, or they can still do things they want to do and don't feel like it's their whole identity.
Yes. So it's sort of tricky, and this is sort of the research program that we are now trying to pursue. It's still very tentative. What we found out, our sample was very limited, and when we go to other cultures and countries, we will probably see very different lives and experiences. But based on what we had here, we could see that things like playing a lot of MMOs for several years or even several decades, for some people is sort of they experience it problematic afterwards. Whereas then there are other people who have played almost equal amount, but they feel that it's just part of who they are and not causing problems. So it's if you look at it from the outside, you might see two people who seem very similar, but if you go and talk to them several hours, their experiences are different, and this seems to be sort of the sort of a critical factor. That what do people themselves think, and what are their own values that they would like to pursue in life, and how does gaming interact with that?
Right, okay, so it's quite personal. You could have two people that game the exact same amount in the exact same environment, but someone might experience internet gaming disorder and the other might not. Right, okay. So that's interesting. So there might not be like a direct correlation with. So you mentioned like MMOs. Have you found that any games in particular have an effect on your results? Like if they're multiplayer, single player, like MMO, shooter, or is it all the same?
Well, the funny thing is that it's actually very diverse. So it seems that people who seek treatment, and yeah, we prefer to use the term people who seek treatment because there are so many ways to measure whether somebody meets the sort of clinical criteria for a disorder, and whether there's comorbidity, meaning that there's many other disorders as well, possibly. So we just use the term treatment seekers to imply that people have themselves decided to seek treatment, and that's sort of the thing. So yeah, the question was about the diversity of games. So we see when we look at the people who seek treatment that they actually play a lot of different games and a lot of different genres, a lot of different from multiplayer to single player to MMOs to esports to mobile games to like almost everything. But a general trend, what I would say is maybe quite prevalent, is that multiplayer games are more common. So it's not only, but more common.
Right, okay, yeah, we've heard that before. Games that potentially have no ending, like you can rank up unlimited times almost, um, can cause that more often than like single player games where there's a campaign and an ending. We have heard that before, which is interesting. So there obviously is some kind of correlation there. Um, so we spoke about the type of game. Did you find any like patterns or correlations between the type of people, like age, gender, I don't know, but whereabouts they live?
Yeah. So um, what I was saying previously was sort of information from another study. So our study, when it was very qualitative and very phenomenological, so we only had 22 people in the whole study. So this is not enough to make much statistical sort of claims or inferences. So we wouldn't probably have a good idea about these sorts of demographic things, but it is quite widely known that a lot of sort of men identifying people are more commonly involved, and this of course sort of relates to the history of gaming as well, and age. I think our sample, one of the interesting things about our sample was in the interview study that we had a lot of older players, whereas commonly it is believed that internet gaming disorder or gaming disorder, these kinds of problems are problems for kids. But we had people who were past 30 and sort of very, very adult. So
very adult. I like
yeah.
that term. Yeah. Okay. I like that term. Yeah. So you did say though, I think you mentioned how you had different groups of gamers. So like people who took it very competitively, people who played more for fun. Is that correct? Or my
Yes.
okay?
So yeah, please go ahead.
Was there a was there any correlation there, like people that gamed more for fun experience less or didn't seek treatment as often than people that played for a competitive reason?
That's tricky. It's again like we saw a lot of differences. Some people, for instance, who were playing single player games, it's it could be argued that these are people who play for fun because you can't really, I guess you can be competitive in a single player game as well, and there is some degree of competitiveness in every game more or less. But yeah, I think it was 50-50 whether people like were competitive in the sort of esports sense that they were sort of climbing the ranks. And what we're trying to do now in the future is just to sort of start to understand what are these different types of sort of profiles that people have when they end up seeking treatment. So, what are the main problems? And we could say one of these problems could be like grinding the ranks in an esports game, whereas another type of problem could be sort of like spending too much money in a game or something like that. So, very different types of people.
Yeah. Okay. No, that makes sense. Sorry, Matty. 2 seconds. I just got to go see to my dog. It's the joy of working from home alone.
Yeah, no
Hold me
worries.
2 seconds.
Yeah.